TeraFlex's new cargo carrier can be configured as a standalone cargo storage rack, or the optional storage rack panels can be added for those of us that may want to transport, I don't know, ball bearings, because nothing gets out of that prison. Let's just take a look at some of the hardware packs. 4 12mm button heads, 16 10mm long button heads. We've got 23 of the 8mm. Now these are the short ones. There's going to be 4 16mm, they're the long ones. There's a stack of washers, 8 to be exact, and 5 lock nuts. Don't forget the 40 10 series T-nuts. And then 6 flat socket head cap screws. Now the actual rack parts include 2 large lower panels, 4 long side rails, 4 of the short side rails, 4 storage rack corners, 2 storage rack brackets, 2 sport cage brackets, some thread locker, and a handy 4mm Allen wrench. That's for free. Starting with the large bottom panels, lay them out on a flat surface with the bent edge up. Line the panels up with the corner cutouts facing out. Bolt the panels together using 5 of the 23 short 8mm cap screws and the 5 lock nuts. Pulling from the remainder of the short 8mm cap screws, loosely install a bolt and T-nut into each of the 18 edge holes. The T-nut to the outside, flat surface against the panel. If you leave the T-nuts so that they're just barely started, it'll really make sliding the rails in a lot easier. Flip over the base panels and add a drop or 2 of thread lock to each of the edge bolts. This stuff dries pretty quick, so keep moving. Start with one of the short side panels and slip it into the T-nuts. It seems to be a little easier to slide the long end of the T-nut in first. This is where having the nuts loose really helps. With the short rail installed, slide in 2 of the T-nuts into the top rail. They're going to be used later for the side mounts. If you forget to put them in now, it's going to be a problem later. Again, loosely start 2 of the T-nuts onto 2 of the 10mm screws into one of the corner pieces. There's going to be 16 of them in the pile that you'll be drawing from. And add a drop or 2 of thread lock. Use a block of wood or something to lift the panel up a little to aid with the corner install. The corner will be installed as shown. Slide in a long rail until it joins the T-nut at the corner that we just installed. Slide in 2 T-nuts. Throw in another 2 of the 10mm bolts into the corner piece and loosely install the T-nuts. And add a drop or 2 of thread lock. Install the corner piece T-nut into the short side rail and slide the remaining long side rail into place. Tightening the screw up a bit that is in the aluminum rail will keep things from falling apart when sliding in the remaining short side rail. Install another 2 10mm screws and nuts into the other corner piece and install as shown. With the final short rail installed, slide in 2 T-nuts. Again, they will be used for the side rail mounts. The remaining corner T-nuts will need to be installed with the corner in place. Slide in a T-nut into each of the rails and drop in 2 more of those 10mm screws into the corner piece. Position the corner piece and start the nuts. It's really surprising how easily it is to start the nuts. Before we finally tighten the corners, we need to make some adjustments. So tightening the corners just enough to allow for movement without being so loose that they fall apart will be to our advantage. Flip over the assembly and final tighten the 5-panel joining screws using the 4mm Allen and 10mm end wrench. The 18 rail mount bolts are still pretty loose, so I just took some of the slop out of them so that the final adjustment would be possible without them shifting all over the place. To make the final adjustments, there should be about a 1/16 of an inch gap between the end of the rails and that little divider plastic piece in between the rails. Adjust each corner until there is equal spacing between the ends of the rails and that little center divider. The contact between the corner piece and the rail needs to be flush and the spacing equal before final tightening. Final tighten when the adjustments have all been made. Tighten all 18 side rail bolts as well as the 8 corner screws. Flip the assembly over again, use thread lock and install 2 screws and nuts into the top of a corner piece. Start with one of the short side panels and slip it into the T-nuts. Move to the opposite end of the rail, use thread lock, start a T-nut in the rail, and thread in a screw. We're still using our 10mm screws. Continue the process and install the remaining rails using thread lock. When we make our corner adjustments, we're really looking for equal spacing between the rail ends and the corner divider piece. With the rails evenly spaced out and flush against the corner sections, final tighten. The corner caps are really a pretty cool design. They just snap into place and provide additional strength, and they look awesome. Make sure the TeraFlex logo is upright. Hook 2 of the top and bottom indexing tabs and give it a firm palm strike. Done. Do it 3 more times. Loosely install the side mount brackets using 4 12mm screws. This concludes our cargo carrier instructional. But wait! If you purchased the optional storage rack panels, now would be a good time to install them. By now, we pretty much have the T-slot and screw install figured out. The only difference is that the rack panels include T-nuts that can be rolled into the bracket slots. Use thread lock on all the bolts and start a screw into each of the installed T-nuts. We will install the upper rail nuts and screws when the assembly is flipped over. This will make gravity our friend. Remove the side brackets if you're adding the panels. Once all of the screws and T-nuts are in place, orient the side mount brackets with the long vertical edge facing the front of the Jeep and the long side of that rack panel extending to the rear of the Jeep. Loosely install the side brackets. Move to the Jeep and open the convenient Velcro access to the two sport cage captured nuts. Use the remaining 4 cap screws and install the sport cage brackets with the bracket oriented as shown. Use thread lock and final tighten both brackets. Grab the lightweight but sturdy cargo carrier and position it in the Jeep. Now, if you have some help at this step, it'll really make it pretty easy. But if you're like me and walk alone, just break out a sturdy zip tie. With the zip tie supporting the opposite side, install the flat socket head screws at the desired height. Moving back to the other side, install the remaining hardware. Be sure to use thread lock. The cargo carrier can be adjusted for height at any time by using the various holes in the side mount. Give the carrier a couple of palm strikes just to make sure you didn't leave any hardware loose. Rattles are unacceptable. TeraFlex's cargo carrier. Yeah, it's like a JK owner dream come true. More room to put stuff in your Jeep. Enjoy.